entrepreneur, great CEO. Mark, I know from experience, because I met you 2 years ago, you weren't real sure about this whole Open XDR gimmick. Was it a gimmick? Was it real? Was it an idea? Was it not? Here you are, spending the whole day with us today. So what happened on the way to the ball game?
It was a huge investment, right? It was a big piece of it. So, um, generally speaking, I try to be cautious when we're making investments in
Yeah,
that. I mean, this is a multi-year commitment, right? And
absolutely.
at this point, going in I think 3 years probably, something like that,
Yeah,
together, and we just renewed again recently, with a multi-year commit. So what we saw was it was new, and there's a lot of emerging vendors in the space and emerging technologies, and it's a fine line between the leading edge and the bleeding edge, as there always is. So there was a bit of skepticism on whether or not it was the right platform, the right vendor, the right strategy as far as how we were going to scale it, because as you know, it requires a significant investment in infrastructure, data centers, all of those pieces. So it was a huge investment for us.
yeah,
It really had to fundamentally align with our strategy and enable our partner ecosystem, because with everything we do, whether it be a new line of business, an acquisition, a new product set, it has to start with the customer. I'm not interested in looking for solutions to problems that don't exist. If the customers will buy it and the customers want to consume it, and we can do it in a way that they can consume easily, then we pursue it. And so ultimately, there was a lot of gnashing of the teeth around, if we make this investment. I mean, we're talking, it's not just the initial piece, it's millions of dollars annually,
yeah,
for a long horizon. And one misstep in this cycle, and you could completely miss the curve. So that was really where we're at.
yeah,
As we look back on it, while it's certainly not always been easy, and it required a lot more, like everything in cybersecurity, it required a lot more time and a lot more investment than I think we understood. It has proven to be a huge plus for us, and right now we're beyond sort of the flywheel stage where we're accelerating rapidly, and we could not do it at the scale that we're doing without an ecosystem that's built around XDR. And that's really
yeah,
really what it's evolved into. Is it's no longer about XDR as a tool, as much as Open XDR for us is the sun in our solar system, if you will, around which all of the other tool sets must integrate with. As our friends at Stellar can tell you, we're fairly demanding about how things have to integrate and work at the degree of integration that we need.
yeah. That's a great summary, Mark, because I know you went through a journey, you went through a hype cycle of your own sense of, is it FUD? Is it new? Is it real? Is it not? And what's really fascinating is we look around the RSAC show, how many people are saying XDR today? So it's totally caught on. Let me dive into this idea of open. What what is the magic of open? It's an ecosystem play. You already said that, but how do you diffuse the acronym FUD when you sit with a client and they go, "Oh, really, guys? Open XDR? What is that? Right? Is that a new mousetrap, or is it a new business model, or is it a combination?" So, how does open work for you when you do talk to a customer?
For us, when we talk about open, it's rarely in conversation with a customer. It's for us, our business model is somewhat unique in that we only work through the partner.
Hmm.
So it's really an important discussion with our partners about how we go to market, because it allows them to bring elements of what they already have that's working. If you look across the MSP or the IT integrator space or whatever you want to call these people, there's a million labels.
Yeah.
They're all doing something, right? It might be firewall, it might be selling some hardware. They're doing something that's at least part of the security landscape, right? Whether it's security or not is debatable, but it's part of the landscape.
Right.
It could be AV, could be EDR, could be firewall, managed firewall. They're doing something. So it's an important conversation to talk to them about not having to shift partnerships with what they have on the hardware side or the software side. Being able to take our full stack, take a part of the stack. We talk about taking them as they are, right? Then they can go out and have that conversation with their end customer about those same concepts. Because what it enables them to do is to truly say to the customer, you don't have to go have these awkward conversations like, yeah, I know I sold you this Splunk instance a couple of years ago, but there's this better thing
Yeah.
out there now, so
Yeah.
get rid of it, right?
Yeah.
Those are conversations nobody wants to have.
Right.
It enables, by having the infrastructure set up, it allows our partners and their customers to truly have a business discussion around risk. And we are now seeing that translate into faster time to revenue for our partners. And at the end of the day, all of the technology is great, all the open stuff is wonderful. But if at the end of the day, if it doesn't improve our business and it doesn't improve our partner's business and it doesn't improve the customer's business, then it's just more FUD, right?
It's more
So
FUD.
when you're able to accelerate that conversation because you're not having to work around mistakes you may have made in the past with them or vendor lock that they may be stuck with, when you're able to help them overcome those business hurdles and make it an easier yes, at the end of the day, all other things being equal, we're all in this to sell more services, more software, more whatever, right? That's how it improves our stakeholders and shareholders' lives. So it's got to be about that conversation, right?
Yeah.
It allows you to get to the more important conversations faster when you don't have to constantly overcome roadblocks or challenges because your technology can't accept their business.
Yeah, I think that's really important because people made an investment and they don't want to be told they made a bad investment, and they want to make sure that they can get a return on what they have, right? So I think that's the play, and I think that's what everybody believes in this community, is that open gives people that advantage. So you said something really profound: risk and cost. How do you help people benchmark that? I know that's kind of a fuzzy thing and it's very organizational dependent, but do you have any clues or ideas you can toss out to the audience here in terms of how would you help somebody frame that up in a conversation?
It's a very elusive conversation, right? Because the risk, the landscape of business risk is changing dramatically, and it's from small businesses to large enterprise, right? We're actively working with insurance producers on talking to their customers because there's a symbiotic relationship between what we can do with them and what they can do for us, which is collectively we can benefit each other. We're educating them on how to have conversations with their customers. Their customers need the services. We're able to bring those customers in and sort of allocate them out to our partners, right? So, but the reason we're having those conversations is because the risk profile has changed dramatically as insurers took it in the shorts the last few years. It's something attuned to like 10 to 1 is the stats that are going out there. $10 in losses for every dollar in premium. So they're just not insuring, right? If you can get to underwriting, they're seeing between 6 and 20x increases in premium. Our directors and officers insurance doubled last year because of cybersecurity risk. And even though we have cybersecurity premium, people sue boards and officers for negligence, for not acting, for not having the right protections in place, right? And so when you look at quantifying risk, what's it worth? It's worth your business. What's your business worth to you? We had a conversation with a doctor who shall remain nameless, who wasn't all that concerned about HIPAA compliance because he wasn't concerned about the fines. And one of the members of the team asked him, well, what is your reputation worth? And there was a pregnant pause, and he said, well, a hell of a lot more than the $250,000 fine, right? But that's truly what was at stake, and he never really thought that through.
Yeah.
What was going to happen using Yahoo Mail to send patients confidential health care, right? So quantifying risk is challenging, but what we see is if you just sit down and look through, like, say, the Travelers, which is kind of the standard, look through the Travelers cybersecurity insurance questionnaire and go through that with somebody and sit down, and it starts to really quantify what your business risk is, right? And where those holes are. And most businesses, I would venture, say in the 100 million and under range,
Yeah.
they don't even know where to begin
Yeah.
on that application. And we're hearing that time and again from producers,
Yeah.
and they can't help them. The insurance carrier is not allowed to help them. And so what they end up doing is kind of finessing their way through it. And then when they have a claim, it gets denied. So
Yeah.
that risk is, it's growing every single day, because at the end of the day, you can do whatever you want on the technology side. You still have an individual at the end of every device clicking on stuff that's
Yeah.
causing problems, or in the case of some of the most recent vulnerabilities, not even clicking on. So
It's a really valid point, and I think that's part of what we're seeing in the last couple of years is everybody is sort of realizing they're at risk, but they don't know how to invest. And in the smaller the organization, the harder it is for them to make a financial decision and a trade-off and reducing risk. What cost level can I reduce risk, and how do I put that into my budget? So how does that help you as a provider? Because you have to cut through that noise. So let's close it out like this panel with just one thought on, Mark. If you could give guidance to those smaller organizations that are struggling with, if I don't do anything, I'm at risk. But if I do something, it's going to cost me money. What's your nugget for the day?
that's a tough one. I mean, I think
I'm
that,
not asking you the easy questions at all, Mark. I'm sorry.
yeah, I think that especially for small and mid-sized businesses, Steve, they have to, you have to prioritize this at the top of the stack. And if you look at over the last 10 years, the shift in how businesses prioritize spend, it's one of the things that makes it attractive being in the service provider space for us, because essentially what we've done is basically developed a SaaS model for other providers to offer their customers, right? A shared service model that makes it more affordable. And a little plug for us, I just want to say,
Sure.
we don't make money in the SMB space. We provide security in the SMB space because we feel obligated to do it as part of our mission. And the security teams are generally very mission-driven, mission-oriented folks. But those businesses, by all means, you've got to do something. You got to find a provider who is willing to work with you and give you a reasonable level of service. But when you look at that shift in spend and you look at what's happened to SaaS subscriptions, and Microsoft has obviously been driving this, Salesforce has driven it. There's so many SaaS applications at the core of a business today, and you look at how they prioritize. If money's tight, what they will pay first, they will pay their SaaS. We see our services, once they've been embraced, are now at the top of that stack. It's up there with their Microsoft licensing and the other things that are required to keep the business going, because it only takes a tiny slip up and everybody, they're paranoid about it. And you should, I always say in business, you should be paranoid about your business, and you should be paranoid about the level of service, and you should be paranoid about the details, right? They should be paranoid about security. It doesn't mean you don't sleep at night. We like to think that we help them sleep at night, but they've got to prioritize that. It's right there with your BCDR, all your SaaS applications that keep the business going. This is becoming one of those things, because if not today, in very short order, it's going to be mandatory. It's already becoming regulated in certain states and now at the federal level, and it's coming like a freight train. I ask people, because our customers generally sign multi-year commitments, do you really think it's going to be less expensive when it's mandatory that you have to have it, right? That's not how it works.
Yeah. So. I think that's a great point, and I think it's a great place to close, which is the more we make security SaaS-like, ease of use, lower cost per se, the more we can have broader adoption and hopefully make the planet safer. Mark, thanks so much for being at the Open XDR Summit today. Really
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.